Please, can we meet you, sir?
I'm Dr. Innocent Chukwusa, the 59th President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria.
So please, why making us do this press conference today? What's it about, sir?
Yeah, so we're looking at the Nigerian economy and the role of professional accountants. So I would say that the government has done well in churning out economic policies to address the challenges facing the economy. And so we have a lot of policies ranging from removal of fuel subsidy, unification of the exchange rate, the drive for foreign direct investment, electricity tariff hike. We also have recently the bank capitalization and a lot more, the setting up the presidential task force on tax reform and fiscal policy and tax reform. So a lot of policies. Are they right in these policies? I would say yes, of course they are right when you look at the way the policies are structured. But where are they wrong? They've been very wrong in implementation, and you can see there is policy inadequacies and prioritization. So, for instance, you have a situation where if the prioritization aspect is, which one do you do first? Take electricity, the fuel subsidy removal. It was announced the first day in office. Then we expect that subsequently government should take action to ameliorate the suffering of the masses. What has been done so far? And they take the issue of hiking electricity tariff. That also came at the time when we are suffering from, when the masses are suffering from the effect of unification of the exchange rate, removal of fuel subsidy. So what we expect is that in the implementation, we should implement it in such a way that we put a human face to those policies. And I think this is the aspect that government is going to do something about. That's also the aspect of no consequences for bad behavior. The Obasanjo administration brought in all the agencies. I call them the agencies for accountability and transparency. People who say corruption, anti-corruption agencies. I don't look at it from anti-corruption agencies. I look at them as agencies for accountability and transparency. Because if you hold in professional accountant, we talk about holding somebody to account. So if you do not perform, and if you do something bad behavior, there have to be consequences. In this area, government, I don't know whether we can say government has done well. Those agents of accountability were last set up by the Obasanjo administration. What has happened from then? Look at the policies around, we're saying 1 trillion economy. But will 1 trillion economy run on 3,000 megawatt of electricity? What is government policy around that? We talk about security. Every time we mention, we say, can we see that security is an indirect economic policy? And what is our policy to stem that? Economists talk about all things being equal. All things cannot be equal when we have security challenges. So I will advise the government to make sure that we imbibe the principles of private sector, efficiency in the private sector. Let private sector drive the economy and let government restrict itself to regulation as opposed to taking part. Because anything government is involved in, there will be inefficiency. Why are the refineries not working? And you have huge wages and salaries for ministries that are connected with the refining of petrol, and yet no 1 liter of petrol is refined. Today we talk about the hike in electricity. There's privatization of the electricity chain, the generation, the distribution. What has happened? The discos are all bankrupt. It could be because the privatization did not allow those who have the finances and the technical know-how to be in charge of the electricity. And that is why the GENCOs, that's the generation, the discos themselves, are all in trouble. Now, the TCN, that's the transmission company, is a monopoly. When you have discos that are in such a place, I mean, in such a way that you have access to one, say a Keja electricity, can we not have a station where we can have a choice so that if one is not performing, I can switch to another one? So let us see how all these issues can be addressed and the economy will work. I think we also need to look at monetary and fiscal policy coordinating committee. The central bank monetary policy have been right, the MPR hike and all the aggressive monetary policy of the central bank. Well, we need that to be backed up by fiscal policies. We're talking about reducing cost of governance. We hear the government is going to implement the Orosanya report. It's just what has happened to that. And
so what do you see as the role of professional accountants in politics and governance of Nigeria? What role has professional accountants played in driving the economic development of this country?
Okay, so professional accountants are the gatekeepers of accountability and transparency in government. Professional accountants are to provide that instrument through which we hold those who are placed in position of government to account. Professional accountants are the drivers of the public sector. Professional accountants are also there in the public sector. If we can begin to imbibe the principles in the private sector to the public sector, then public sector will begin to mirror the efficiency in the private sector. And this is where the role of accountants come in. So accountants provide the information that you need to hold account. So if we talk about accountability, take for instance the Ican Accountability Index. That is what can be used to assess the performance of government or the 3 tiers of government in the management of public finance. So the role of accountants are indispensable. When accountants are called upon to work, they go extra mile to do what they have been asked to do. That does not mean that we don't have exception to the general rule, but we know that it was an accountant that provided, that led the committee that produced that report that we all make reference to when it comes to rationalization of government agency. That's the Orosanya report. We also know that it was when accountant was the Minister for Finance that Nigeria produced its first budget. I keep singing this because that tells you what professional accountants can do. And so when you neglect accountants, that the governance suffers. When accountants are not given their rightful place, governance suffers.
Yes, sir, you recently signed an audit delegation agreement with the Financial Reporting Council, FRC of Nigeria, and instituted Corporate Reporting Award for listed companies with NGX Rate Co. Can you throw more light on these 2 initiatives?
Okay, so if I start with the Corporate Reporting Award, as I said, Ican has been at the forefront of advocating for accountability and transparency in governance. And we do this through the Ican Accountability Index. The Ican Accountability Index has gotten a root in the public sector because we have brought that to the awareness of the Vice President of the country, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister for the Economy. We've even been asked to present the Ican Accountability Index before the National Economic Council. The Ican Accountability Index has been spread across the shore of Nigeria. It's been presented to African Accountant Generals of Accountant Generals, and the same for Auditor Generals in Africa. So we presented to governors, the DG Governors Forum. We visit governors. We also present the Ican Accountability Index. So we believe that has been awareness has been well created in the public sector. We now want to extend that advocacy for accountability and transparency to the private sector. And that's what informed the Ican NGX Corporate Reporting Award. So we expected that companies that engage in better transparency in their corporate reporting will imbibe the principles of sustainability reporting, because we know that reporting has gone beyond just focusing on financial. And sustainability information has become investment decision, useful information that investors can rely on to make investment decisions. So when I talk about social and environmental sustainability, there are risks elements that are attached to this. Investors need them to make an informed investment decision. And so a good corporate report should imbibe the principles of elements of financial reporting, corporate governance, and sustainability. We carried out the maiden edition of the Ican NGEX Corporate Reporting Award on May 17th, and Dangote Cement came first, Airtel second, and Seplat third. And what distinguishes this report are the extent to which they incorporate sustainability. Because in sustainability now, investor is no more looking at just financial capital. Integrated reporting concept is now talking about social and relationship capital, intellectual capital, human capital, natural capital. So capital is no longer restricted to just financial capital. And that is why if you are engaged in such reporting that investors will rely on your information, you must cover all these aspects and not just concentrate on financial reporting. So those are the individual entities that do well in this area that will win the Corporate Reporting Award, spreading accountability and transparency to the private sector. And why we needed to do that is because, we focused on public sector first, because public sector is less developed when it comes to corporate reporting than private sector. In private sector, we have our members, and so they drive that. So we prioritize public sector first, and then we came to the private sector.
Finally, sir, what has been the challenging aspect of your Ican presidency, and what do you intend to do when your tenure as president comes to an end?
That's a very challenging question. What I see as the challenging aspect is actually